Jembur Zodan Yumi Jang, Zona Molum Jembur Nabiata, Bagardargam Zandu, Shirmaldo, Tumba to J. Janla, give Joms are Teneti, Gopcho, native Jean Shaparambo, Chimanga Santi Jan, if Shantu Sanwa Sanwa Chimbo, Sheriff Sobaji Shawati, Dejan Shoba. 人气马兰德克接所到中等的及三级中等的你及三级这样的小所的那中等的对象是把小家特别像就生活全部写入早把了关在多日记了也怎么是多久你像就生活全部家伙的中的结了当去那边打吧当然没把是把是几是的个三级这样的从学的那第一次家伙的中的结了吧 Pamman da Marton Yod Ba Shanti Tsat Shang Tim Hanlo Zam Dan Dik Ba Shantu Sanhua Tame Yong Su Kur Ne Gyamtsu Nang Ne Khli Gyarbu Gyamtsu Kangba Ne Tanga Namka Lam Pak De Namka Lap Shargu Ji Pongbo Rilap Chondun De Ji Kanda Songo Tenin Jagur Jon Ne Kirwa La Pamma Le Wap De Chondun De Shirkya Ta Pa Dan Te Jang Shaba Rinchen Manga Jawlam Gu Shirm Tsarni Shanchib Sanhua Shirub Tsagba Kalawar Tere Songor Te Shanchib Sanhua Shirub Tsagba Dam Ngond Ngonsum De Kana Ga Jang Yang Tabram Gabi Tamr Namba Mambo Shi De Shuk Chigdun De Ko Tene Shanchib Sanhua Shirub Tsagdin Jahur Jonna Kirwa Landar Kachib Kafsar To Jahur Jamso Jig Kyo Jig De Semchin Kam Jirni Chig Tar Jahur Ki Me Ba Chizam Tsiki Jud Mani So Semkip Samda Mani De Tsad Me Pa Changwi Tsad Me Pa Tsad Changi Me Pa Semchin Tama Tar Lo Riki Wa Kachir Chig Do Chig Nga Te Jiwa Tam Tongwaran Gyoro Jahur Jonni Kirwe Tirka Chig Me Ma Tagda Ti Tse Na Pama Tomchak Tama Gyamsu Nang Ne Tanga Namka Lap Shonte Pama Te Tag Lap Shonchib Sanhua Tomchak Tama Kodo Tenif Shanchib Sanhua Te Tag Namka Le Sharku Pombo Ro Te La Te Te Tag Kartanji Namka Lam Kopar Nang Te Tag Tamchi Jan Jahur Jonni Kirwa Lana Me Bayan Dobar Zobar Shanchib Tarwa Sharta Ko Tenif Shanchib Sanhua Kanda Ngon Tagba Chimbo La Yang Tagbar Jigba Kirwa Te Tag Tagba Chimbo Yondan Da Paru Tu Shimba Chigak Ngabab Jodo Kanda Ngon Nyantu She Bipshe Ba Shanchib Sanhua Te Tag Na Nyantu Ji Tagba Nyada Jote Te Tag Tamchi Ji Yang Chu Tamchar Tongwa Nyada Tagba Chimbo Yondan Yang Tagbar Shibar Sharta Ko Tenin Jahur Jonna Kirwe Shanchib Sanhua Sherub Tsaba Landar Ka Chibka Sardo Rikiwa Darta Dadag Tamchid Na Ko Wur Gyamsur Shigne Semchin Tarur Shiba Yente Te Tag Jandar Tar Nao Tenif Shanchib Sanhua Sherub Tsaben Jahur Jonna Kirwa La Tsisib Chapi Yang Ji Yongsu Chiba Uzambo Yongsu Chiba Uzambo Chimbo Sherub Hui Joba Chuji Semchin Chame Tep Tarwa Mayil Ha Kyo Da Lana Tenja Yi Da Yi Si Jigam Ta Da Te Son Shi Shanchib Lamtan Bayim Dokang Da Chuna Kanjik Choki Raftan Na Te Tun Da Dag Shanchib Semkye Jang Tamchin Kenye Te Dag Tangyang Nye Da Jahur Kirme Ba Gyamtsu Nang Da Tambi Chupa Makar Bu Mdo Shate Zan Mayan No Sherif Tsodi Me Ba Mdon Da Zapchang Chawam Tongwa Karte Mdon Da Ndam Tsombi Mdo Jan Kanyang Medna Semchin Kanglam Do De Kumchung Da Kong Da Chabagam Lana Me Bayang Dobu Shanchib Tam Ngombar Zobar San Ya Niba Yotam Jahur Jirme Ba Rikiwa Li Gyarbur Gyamsu Umu Shtiene Lo Gyal Lomba Sherib Chimbo Gongbor No War Ngon Yishi Ngondon Rowa Li Dang Ngag Dang Yiki Le Dang Damba Devjan Shaba Tamchib Shabi Tsugum Zhe Dang Tun Zambi Ghozong Popi Chu Tamcha Dang Semchin Tamcha Lam Nyambaran Jokpa Tangen Zan Tangen Zan Stung Kachik Chika Toba Dang Shanchib Zan Lev Shirmar Toba Dang Monam Rja Chevi Semchin Tamcha Lav Dag Dang Javaram Hambar Sem Damba Te Yondu Kibir Nisha Te Dag Le Yonsu Manyamba Te Vjin Zamba Kator Yeba Chok Dang Damba Shambi Sem Dang Damba Nyanzi Nyarji Tsik Meva Te Do Yang Dag Ba Shanchib Dam Ngomar Zobar San Gyavara Niso Sherib Tsakbi Meba Kuwum Tongwa Pchongdan De Tejang Shikba Shikya Te Bi Shanchib Shirdan Bachang Shanchib Sankhwar Kirani Sonam Tamam Zate Fkara Tomchak Tamar Nami Yang Sonji Manyam So Tongsam Jir Tongchimbo Jiktin Ji Kamni Tana Yonkerji, der Yonker Zamji, Chokanda Yang Samchenji, Maura Jones Yamedo, she shan't number over San Yena, Yitzim Gilana Mepayan, over Zobashanj, number San Yaver, Nisamji, Shavati, Siji Yeche, Dinihli, Dizahli Yarbu, Mumdunda, Naurate, Tejan, Tenip Jordan de Gijalam Go, Sham Sarane, Chochidan Digne, Tizis Japan, Sordo, Sonuzono Jandoza, Chonam Kunda Kabala. Sumchir Sarnim San Ernamjim Chavir Kuna Lagbergian, Fishes Zambor Namdan Ardana, Simson Ganji Shiljan, Pio, Simpson Tamson Davana, where not Jung and Java La, where not Jung and Java La. Donan Dojan Shanchever Te, Dejan Shabba Daki Huang, Dunger Ernamle Juri Chur, Jetcher Rapt of Tambara, Dieu, Denity Sena. Sedang damba sharivi hli diarbur jamsu vumo landirke chiq sordo. Cheji jojir shirmar doba shanchib sim kejan shira khoda meba yoba Yod Zimbabwe Larzubasan, Yenar Niperkago, Nijichi with Midazunji, Mandurajan, Karatonja Tamar Sonum Dajeba, Parodo Shembatric Boyons, Zobrajeba de Dajan, Tadon Sandinian Motobayote, Teji Shujena with Miki Tadonyan, Nargamoto Bishir Dale, Ningabo Kanjena Tambo, Sambian Edaniba, Yapshin Yenedan Saba. Gerçin devji nedan jeban korlo gerwa nedan ngaba shirmer doba janju sanhui neso tene ti tsena hlidyar por jamsuvum Stonsum girton chembonjik tengi kamali baranchen chopi norokchik yobate hlidyar bu moti jondan de la parne jondan de gigan tse yujirde devjiso Tene hlidyar bor jamsuvum mo janju sanwa jero sabadan neften shari olander kchir me so kanta da kapchondan de la nor perden nor jondan de kimir de jisama wonde maji wa neften girme ba kyokimir de prolo jondan de gigamir de jiso hlidyar bor jamsuvum mor me ba zamba shari wa kate da qarzimchir chevre gerne tevegen chimir de gerwa Zobu Shanchim Gumber Zobersan Gevate, Norumbo Jibandona, Teta Mayano, Tina Ti, Sena Jitinji Kamcham Chelnetan Shari, Monsum, the Hlidyarbur Jamsu, Moni, Wambur, now Wambo Marna, Moyo Wambo Marna, the Kibi Wambur Kirne. Udangni Shanchu Sanhur Gerayan, Dr. Tambati, Sena Hoshos, Sonet, Hoshos, Jitinji Kamchama, Mepaji Shat, Rumbo Chernavdanji Shanjong, Danim Gumber Zobersan Geva Gandaftan. The Kivichim Sansam Chesani, the Hushu Zombo, Dambi Zigi, Ligi Gochi Chokcher, Cabra, de Chutomber Shedo, Kandan Jitinji Kam, Jepalan Kopi, Simpson, Tamchi, Jan Tejan Shabal, Clodon, Nojan, Chizadan, Hamayan, Namkadan, Mam Chertoshi Chimbo, Madame Mayan Batet, Tamchi, Shirjan, Tedala Chutomber, Zapam Tongo, Simpson, Tejan Shabi, Chutambanyan Batet, Tamji, Lana Mepayan, Dober Zobashan, Lefshirnum, Dober Kerdo, Jitinji Kam Chuma Mepate, Jitinji Kam, Mamje Pate, Nambatrido, Yoso, Chundan de Ki, Shadiata Bingur. Kor Legian, Chok Sumton, Merkiva Chula Zoba Tober Kirdo, Chok Sumton Tedan, Lana Mepayan, Dober Zobashan, the long number Tober Kirdo, the Nijan Susanwa Chimbo, Shero Sabadan, Netangi, Sheriv, Chang Marmaver Kirdo, Tambi Chupa Macarole, Churtin of Tambi, Lager, Tape, Churchipa, wo.
For benefit all sentient beings, please generate the supreme and extraordinary bodhicitta.
Next, we will continue teaching the Lotus Sutra. In the Lotus Sutra, we are now teaching the Devadatta chapter. Regarding the Devadatta chapter, which is not separated as a distinct chapter in Tibetan version, it is combined together with the chapter on the appearance of a jeweled stupa. In this section, one part discusses the merits of the precious stupa, and another part talks about the prediction given to Devadatta. Following that, it speaks about the 8-year-old dragon daughter attaining Buddhahood. These are the main topics covered in these 2 chapters. All these matters are taught together in this section. So today we will continue teaching these topics. First, let me also discuss the chapter on the appearance of a jeweled stupa. This is the Devadatta chapter that we are covering now. The Devadatta chapter has tremendous merit and virtue. Every chapter in this sutra has different merits and benefits. In the records of the Lotus Sutra transmission, there has a story. It tells of an Indian monk during the Tang dynasty whose name was Faxian. This Faxian particularly loved to recite the Lotus Sutra. He appeared especially dignified, and his physical presence was quite remarkable. His voice was also very pleasant. When he recited the Lotus Sutra, there was a woman at that time who was attracted by his appearance, including his talents. She was very drawn to him. This monk, Faxian, was staying in the monastery. One evening, this woman wanted to get close to him and came near his monk's quarters. At that moment, he was just about to recite the Devadatta chapter of the Lotus Sutra. While he was reciting it, he was reciting in Sanskrit. After she listened, she felt it was especially beautiful and pleasant to hear. Originally, she had some impure thoughts toward this Dharma master, but suddenly her impure thoughts completely vanished. She went back on her return journey, perhaps crossing a river or the sea. At that time, the boat drifted far away. Later, she nearly faced mortal danger. However, through a very special and wondrous manner, she did not die. Later, she had a dream. What did she dream about? Because she developed faith in the Lotus Sutra, although what she heard was in Sanskrit language. But later in her dream, it was said that because she had listened to the Devadatta chapter, she did not suffer this life-threatening calamity. Afterwards, she also felt that her previous behavior was improper, and she sincerely repented. Later, she went to Mount Wutai and became ordained as a nun, and receiving the name as Konghui Bhikshuni. The meaning of this story is that sometimes we may hear certain sounds, including when we receive transmissions. You may not necessarily understand the content within, but as long as you hear it, the Buddhist sutras contain inconceivable blessings. Just like when we recite the 100-syllable mantra or recite mantras, we do not understand what is being said within, but actually the sound itself has this kind of power. Yesterday, I also explained to everyone what does transmission mean. Whether someone has received this Dharma teaching mainly refers to the transmission. In Tibetan Buddhism, we also often speak about whether someone has received this teaching or not. For example, regarding the empowerment, whether they have received this empowerment or not, whether they have the transmission of the Lotus Sutra, whether they have the transmission of the Diamond Sutra. If they have it, they have the qualification to transmit it to other people. Therefore, we are not only studying the Lotus Sutra, but also including the Sutra of the Wise and Foolish and the Sutra of 100 Karmas. In these sutras, it is frequently taught that when the Buddha was in his causal stage, he even gave up his own body, his possessions, and even his children in order to obtain a single verse of Dharma. Why did the Buddha do this? He gave up everything in order to obtain this Dharma teaching. Therefore, we must acknowledge that whether in Buddhist history or in the biographies of great masters, there actually exists something called transmission. After receiving this transmission, the meaning may be completely different from what it was before. Perhaps you among those present today also have this kind of feeling. If you read the Lotus Sutra by yourself, perhaps much of the content within may not give you such profound feelings. You might read the Devadatta chapter or the chapter on the appearance of a jeweled stupa, but may not have much feeling. However, if you truly have the transmission, after it has been taught, you may feel different in your mind. When His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche taught the White Lotus, an extensive biography of the lives of Buddha Shakyamuni, at the beginning when His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok said he would teach the White Lotus, at that time I thought, because I had read it before, that's just a collection of stories, what is there to teach? I wish His Holiness would teach something more profound. That would be much better. At first that was what I thought. But later, every time His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok taught each story, it felt incredibly vivid and real. When I had read it myself, much of it seemed that
although I understood the content and words, I was still somewhat doubtful about some of the underlying principles. But after the teaching was completed, I truly developed tremendous faith in Shakyamuni Buddha's dedication to sentient beings in his causal stage. I developed especially great faith and extremely firm certainties. So I think for many of us, this transmission is still very important. This is one of the strengths of Tibetan Buddhism. Therefore, after each of you has received this teaching, you should also have a certain kind of regard for it. This is good. I have received the transmission of this teaching. I have obtained this teaching. That teaching I have not received. I hope to receive it in the future. What does it mean to obtain it? It means to have this transmission. When we were teaching the 8 verses of mind training, Langri Tangpa's disciple, Geshe Chekawa, in order to receive the transmission of 4 verses, he traveled from Kham to the Lhasa regions. So what we call obtaining the Dharma does not necessarily mean just obtaining a textbook, and that is sufficient. Therefore, I would like to emphasize this point to everyone once again here. Next, today we will continue teaching. Yesterday, regarding the chapter of Devadatta, we can actually say this. All of the Buddha's qualities, including the 6 paramitas and the 4 immeasurables, as well as the perfect major and minor marks and the uncommon qualities, we can say these qualities have their source in Devadatta. Not only, as we spoke about yesterday, the Mahayana Dharma Sutra also states this. In the Mahayana Dharma Sutra, it is also taught that because Devadatta existed, many of the Buddha's qualities were able to manifest. For example, when Devadatta tried to harm Shakyamuni Buddha, he released a mad elephant. At that time, the Buddha first used his extraordinary spiritual powers to tame the elephant. At that time, this scene was particularly moving. Because of this reason, many people began to take refuge in Shakyamuni Buddha. So sometimes it is a kind of dependent arising. Because Devadatta continuously caused harm to Buddha, and through his harmful actions, the Buddha continuously cultivated patience and other paramitas. Thus, Buddha has manifested many qualities naturally. Therefore, the Mahayana Dharma Sutra states that if anyone thinks Devadatta was the enemy or adversary towards Buddha, such a person is foolish, an ignorant person. So I also feel that sometimes when studying the Lotus Sutra, actually I had read it very early on. The second year after I became ordained, I went to a monastery in Markham for summer retreat. At that time, when I read in the Lotus Sutra about the 8-year-old dragon daughter attaining Buddhahood in the Devadatta chapter, at that time I had the feelings when I read it by myself and were somewhat different from when I truly studied it later, including when I translated the extensive biography of the lives of Buddha Shakyamuni, Devadatta showed in every story, and I was like, oh, it is him again, it is him again. I had quite strong opinions about him, and I found it especially hard to accept. Actually, he was also performing a role. We did not know that before. Perhaps you have also seen it before. There is a television series called Buddha, which is an Indian production. From beginning to end, Devadatta basically plays the role of the villain throughout. He continuously harmed the Buddha, and the Buddha continuously cultivates patience in many ways. Only once, it seems, in a garden, Prince Siddhartha beat him severely. Then King Shuddhodana was also especially pleased, because before he always felt the Buddha was too compassionate and lacked the courage of a man, because Devadatta's family, including his father and mother, had always been trying to harm the Buddha, fearing he would become the king. There were many, many ways they continuously tried to harm Buddha. So whether in these stories or in the series, which should have been produced by Indians themselves, it should be that the Indian version and what is taught in Tibetan Buddhism regarding the 12 deeds of the Buddha's life are very similar. Only some individual methods, perhaps in order to attract certain people, they added certain elements. Other than that, most of it should be the same. So most of us, especially some Buddhist practitioners, still have prejudice against Devadatta. They think that Devadatta constantly tried to harm Shakyamuni Buddha. Many people are unhappy about this, but this is actually a mistake. Especially in the Mahayana Dharma Sutra, it is explained very clearly. Previously, many people also felt Devadatta was not good, that he was a bad person. From now on, through studying the Lotus Sutra this time, we must know that he was actually truly extraordinary. At that time, the Buddha told the 4 assemblies of disciples that after immeasurable kalpas have passed, Devadatta will attain Buddhahood. His Buddha name is Devaraja Tathagata. Devadatta also means heavenly gift. In Tibetan, we call him Laishan, which also means heavenly gift. He is complete with our heart, completely enlightened and perfect in knowledge and conduct, well-departed, knower of the world, and unsurpassed, tamer of humans, teacher of devas and humans, Buddha, and Bhagavat. This means he possesses the 10 epithets of a Buddha. His world is called Heavenly Way. He already possesses such a Buddha title. Actually, dependent arising is inconceivable. Why did Devadatta continuously harm the Buddha in these ways? In some biographies of the Buddha, there is one called the Sutra on the causes and origins of the Buddha's activities. The Sutra on the causes and origins of the Buddha's activities speaks extensively stories about the Buddha being slandered in this lifetime, including by Sundar and others who used a woman to slander him. All these were due to the Buddha in his causal stage in previous times, often having harmed others and slandered others. Such kinds of dependent arising, even after attaining Buddhahood, still manifest some phenomena, including the initial cause with Devadatta. The Buddha himself also explained. At the very beginning, there was a particularly wealthy family. It seems they were half-brothers, same father but different mothers. When the father was dying, regarding the inheritance and family property, at that time everyone was very attached to it. The older brother thought that if his younger brother continued to live, perhaps in the future all the wealth might be taken by him. So once, also at Vulture Peak Mountain, when they reached the mountain peak, he pushed his brother into the abyss. Afterwards, he rolled many stones onto the corpse to make sure he was completely died. At that time, that older brother was Shakyamuni Buddha's very first past life, and the younger brother was Devadatta. So it was this kind of dependent arising. The Buddha, on one hand, also manifested that cause and effect are infallible. Cause and effect are not in the slightest bit false. He had this kind of dependent arising. Because of this reason, in many lifetimes, our teacher Shakyamuni Buddha was harmed by Devadatta. We can put it this way. As we just mentioned, that in the future, Devadatta will be called Devaraja Tathagata. When he attains Buddhahood in the future, he will be called Devaraja Buddha. He will remain in the world for 20 intermediate kalpas, extensively proclaiming the wondrous dharma for sentient beings. Sentient beings equal in number to the sands of the Ganges will attain arhatship. Innumerable sentient beings will also awaken to the mind of a Pratyekabuddha. Sentient beings equal in number to the sands of the Ganges will give rise to the supreme mind of Bodhi, attain the acceptance of the non-arising of dharmas, all the way to attaining the stage of non-retrogression. Look at Devadatta. Many of Buddhist practitioners often say, "You are just like Devadatta." If a certain person is slightly disobedient around a master, if they frequently do certain things, people say this person is Devadatta. In a certain sense, according to the principles of the common vehicle, we can say this, but actually Devadatta is truly as described as in this way. Because the Lotus Sutra contains many uncommon teachings, these are things we had not encountered before. Some people ask, why does the Lotus Sutra constantly talk about merit and virtue? What exactly is it teaching? Actually, the Lotus Sutra mainly teaches what is not taught in the common vehicle, the most secret, most profound aspects of the Buddha's teachings, as well as the principle of the ultimate single vehicle. As for the reason why such principles are expounded, the pith instructions are like this. After some pith instructions have been taught, this is the deepest and most wondrous. The reason is also like this. At that time, after Devaraja Tathagata passed away and entered nirvana, the true Dharma will abide in the world for 20 intermediate kalpas. At that time, many stupas will appear, unlike Shakyamuni Buddha when his relics numbered 84,000. It will not be like that. All his complete body relics will be made into a 7-jeweled stupa. The 7-jeweled relic stupa will be 60 yojanas in height and 40 yojanas in length and width. All the devas and humans will use various mixed flowers, powdered incense, burning incense, and ointments, as well as clothing, necklaces, banners, flags, and jeweled canopies, along with music and songs to make offerings. They will bow down and make offerings to this 7-jeweled precious stupa. This relic stupa of the Buddha, because the Buddha has already passed into nirvana completely, that is to say, after Devadatta has completely passed away, immeasurable sentient beings will also attain arhatship. Immeasurable sentient beings will also awaken to the fruition of Pratyekabuddhahood. An inconceivable number of sentient beings will give rise to the mind of unsurpassed perfect enlightenment and become non-retrogressive. Therefore, we must definitely understand this. First of all, regarding myself, I may also have often had some dissatisfaction with Devadatta in my heart. I see that many of you Dharma friends here may also have this. Before we die, it is also very important to recognize this truth. So today let us all together recite 100 times the Vajrasattva mantra to confess.
Bandir sadom 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 bandir Mother Sadom, 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 Dogdon Simshin Tamshi Ji Danzi Nyamji Gandon Nishanji Nyambu Amzir Nambara Tabara Sho.
Regarding Devadatta, we need to be more careful in the future. All right? Actually, Devadatta is truly remarkable. Just now we spoke about his relic stupa. Through the relic stupa, he also liberates many sentient beings. However, generally speaking, what we call a relic stupa or precious stupa, as stated in the Nirvana Sutra, for relic stupas only Śrāvakas, Pratyekabuddhas, and those who have truly attained realization may have them built. Also, Master Paramartha stated that Śrāvakas, Pratyekabuddhas, and Bodhisattvas can have relic stupas built for them. However, for ordinary people, nowadays in both the Han region and Tibetan area for what are called certain masters, after they pass away, many people will build stupas for them, including placing all their hair and relics inside. But our teacher, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok, was very much opposed to this. If someone is not a great realized being, or if there is no special necessity, it is best not to build a stupa. For building a stupa, it must be for Śrāvakas, Pratyekabuddhas, or Bodhisattvas who have attained nirvana. Only build stupas for such people. Because now in the Han region as well, in many monasteries, whenever an elder monk in their own monastery passes away, they build a stupa for him. Some ancestral stupa forests are particularly numerous. Whether this is reasonable or not is hard to say. In some stories from the Lotus Sutra records, in the past there was a disciple of Bodhidharma called Dzongchi. She also cultivated the Lotus Sutra for her entire life. For 20 years she never left the monastery. She recited the Lotus Sutra 10,000 times. Later she passed away in a secluded mountain and no one discovered her body for a long time. Later, when people found her after she had completely passed away, finally they made her body into a stupa. After building the stupa, it seems that the lotus flowers grew out from within the stupa at that time. Later, when they investigated, the roots of the lotus flowers were actually the base of her tongue from her physical body. Her tongue served as the lotus root and stem, and the lotus grew. This was due to the merit, virtue, and blessings of her lifelong recitation of the Lotus Sutra. Later, the local relevant authorities approved establishing a temple called Phahua Temple at the location of her relic stupa. Historically, there has been such a monastery named after the Lotus Sutra. So, for some great realized beings or truly sincere practitioners, perhaps such precious stupas may be appropriate. However, my suggestion is that for our ordinary masters or ourselves, perhaps in the future, you may become the patriarch of some monastery, the abbot of a monastery. When you pass away, you probably should tell your disciples that it is best not to build a stupa. Building a stupa may not necessarily be beneficial. In some sutras, and according to some lineage masters, it is not particularly praised. Regarding Buddha stupas separately, if there are relics of the Buddha, that is very good. If there are no Buddha relics, you can also place consecrated items inside. Building a separate Buddha stupa like this is very good. Otherwise, nowadays, some people put everything into the stupa, or even in prayer wheels, they put this and that. When building stupas, they also put the hair and clothing of this master and that master. Generally speaking, these should not be placed inside stupas. If this master is still alive, placing his hair and nails in a stupa would actually be harmful to him. Therefore, as Buddhist practitioners regarding these issues, we should be comprehensive, wise, and not act casually. Oh, this belongs to the master, so let's consecrate everything inside. Putting everything inside is not in accordance with the Dharma. There must be a basis in sutras and treatises. If there is no basis in sutras and treatises, it is best to have a basis in the instructions of lineage masters. This is very important. Regarding what we just discussed, the principles about Devadatta have been explained. Below, the Buddha told the monks that in the future world, if there are virtuous men and virtuous women who hear the Devadatta chapter of this Lotus Sutra, develop faith in it and respect it, and do not give rise to doubt, such people will not fall into the hells, hungry ghost realm, or animal realm. This is very important, especially regarding the Devadatta chapter, because the Devadatta chapter is somewhat different from our previous impressions. For us not to give rise to doubt is somewhat difficult. Now I can completely believe it. Not giving rise to doubt, and moreover having respect, if it is like this, they will not fall into the 3 lower realms. In the future they will be born before Buddhas of the 10 directions. Wherever they are born, they will also always hear the Lotus Sutra. If they are born among humans or in the heaven realms, they will enjoy wondrous bliss. They will have wealth. They will have everything, whatever they wish for. It is not that they want this or want that, but always cannot obtain it. Not being able to fulfill one's wishes is also very painful. Moreover, if such people are born before a Buddha, they will be born by transformation within a lotus flower. They will not be born from a womb and will have no suffering. Before the Buddha, they will always manifest various spiritual transformations and be born. These are the merits and virtues of this chapter. At that time from below, the Tathagata Prabhutaratna, there was a Bodhisattva who came with him. His name was Bodhisattva Pratyekabuddha. Some commentaries state that he was an attendant or servant of Tathagata Prabhutaratna, but this may not be correct because Tathagata Prabhutaratna passed into nirvana such a long time ago. Would his attendant have lived for such a long time? That would be a bit strange, disciples living longer than the Buddha. However, as a Bodhisattva he can manifest. So it is not necessarily that he is an attendant. A Bodhisattva appeared from the pure land of Bhagavat Prabhutaratna. His name is Bodhisattva Prajnakuta. Bodhisattva Prajnakuta said to Tathagata Prabhutaratna, "We came here to the Dharma assembly to give everyone that the entire Lotus Dharma assembly has been completed. Now we can return to our own land, to our own pure land." We mentioned above, did we not? From below. Where did Tathagata Prabhutaratna come from? Oh yes, from below. He emerged from the earth, right? At that time, Shakyamuni Buddha told Bodhisattva Prajnakuta, saying that virtuous one, wait for just a moment. Here we have a Bodhisattva named Manjushra. Under my teachings, his wisdom is quite exceptional. I very much hope that you too can discuss certain aspects of the Dharma. After you have finished talking, it will not be too late for you to return home. Since you have come all the way here, after coming here, it is not just about understanding the other related people here. It would be best if you exchange views with Manjushra Bodhisattva. At that time, Bodhisattva Prajnakuta also agreed. At that time, Manjushra Bodhisattva was seated in a 1,000-petaled lotus flower. It was like a carriage wheel. He manifested various different appearances. The bodhisattvas who came together with him, these bodhisattvas were also seated upon jeweled lotus flowers. Then from the great ocean, Manjushra Bodhisattva also came from the ocean. We previously taught that sutra, right? The Mahayana Sutra spoken by the Buddha for Sagara, the Dragon King. The character G seems to be a bit different, right? It was not this Jai that was written at that time. You have also forgotten. I have also forgotten. He emerged from the dragon palace. Then Manjushra Bodhisattva also abided in the sky and proceeded to Vulture Peak Mountain. At that time he descended from the lotus flower. He paid respects to the 2 Bhagavats. One is Shakyamuni Buddha and the other one is Tathagata Prabhutaratna. Tathagata Prabhutaratna is the one inside the precious stupa. Then he paid homage to Shakyamuni Buddha and Tathagata Prabhutaratna. After paying homage, he went to where Bodhisattva Prajnakuta was. They exchanged greetings with each other and sat together in one place. The 2 of them began to converse together. At that time, Bodhisattva Prajnakuta asked Manjushra Bodhisattva, "You came from the place of Sagara, Dragon King. How many sentient beings did you liberate in the Dragon Palace? If we were other worldly people, we would ask, what delicious things are there? When you went there, is it possible to make money? If you can make more money, I would also like to go." But these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they probably do not have these concerns. Actually, this also represents that when Buddhas and Bodhisattvas converse, perhaps our eating, drinking, and entertainment and other worldly knowledge, they may not necessarily discuss much. Perhaps for the sake of manifestation or to accord with sentient beings, sometimes they will say something, but it is not necessarily what they truly want. What they truly want at that time, Bodhisattva Prajnakuta also asked Manjushra Bodhisattva, "When you went to the Dragon Palace, how did your Dharma propagation and benefiting of sentient beings go?" How many sentient beings did you liberate? Manjushra Bodhisattva told him that the number of sentient beings I liberated this time is incalculable and cannot be expressed in words. It is also impossible to measure with the mind. Wait just a moment. If you wait briefly, you will know. Approximately how many sentient beings I liberated, the results will be displayed immediately on the screen. Just as his words fell before he had finished speaking, countless bodhisattvas seated upon lotus thrones emerged from the great ocean. And they all proceeded to Vulture Peak Mountain and abided in the sky. At this time, these bodhisattvas, that is, the countless bodhisattvas just mentioned, those whom words could not express and the mind could not measure, they were actually all taught and transformed by Manjushra Bodhisattva. Because he needed to give an account to Bodhisattva Pratyekabuddha, these were all liberated by Manjushra Bodhisattva during his time at the Dragon Palace. Actually, these bodhisattvas should be quite accomplished. Each time we go out, we cannot find even a few people to take refuge in the three jewels. Even if we find a few, after a period of time, they begin to betray their vows again. Those taught and transformed by Manjushra, those who possess the bodhisattva practices, together discuss the 6 paramitas. Among the bodhisattvas, there are 2 types. There is one type of bodhisattva who originally always had the Mahayana disposition. These bodhisattvas with Mahayana disposition, later on they also often discuss the principles of the 6 paramitas concerning the Mahayana. This is what they continuously discuss. There is also another group. In Tibetan, it is also like this. In this way, it is more convenient to explain. There is also another part of the bodhisattvas. Originally, they had the Śrāvaka capacity. But later, after Manjushra Bodhisattva arrived, they began to take refuge in the Mahayana. Then they already became bodhisattvas. But when they arrived in the sky, they still discuss about the Śrāvaka practices. What they discuss is still the Śrāvaka teachings. So sometimes when Dharma friends who study Tibetan Buddhism integrate with those who study Chinese Buddhism, these disciples of Han Chinese Buddhism still discuss the principles of Han Chinese Buddhism. And Dharma friends of Tibetan Buddhism, on the surface, they are together with Han Chinese Buddhism, but actually they are practicing Tibetan Buddhism themselves. You see, among the disciples of Manjushra Bodhisattva, originally in the Dragon Palace, there were 2 types of people. One type consists of Mahayana Bodhisattvas. So, for Mahayana Bodhisattvas, they are Mahayana Bodhisattvas. They continuously discuss the 6 paramitas. Then there is another part who are Hanayana. Originally, they were Hanayana, but now they have become Mahayana. After they have attained the Mahayana fruition, because of their former habitual tendencies and former preferences, when they arrived there, they still spoke about some Śrāvaka conduct. I think this is still quite good. Including some of our Dharma friends, perhaps they previously studied Tibetan Buddhism. I have previously met some elder Dharma masters from the Han region. When they were young, they entered Tibetan area to study Tibetan Buddhism. Now, when you speak to them about Tibetan Buddhism, they have a particularly strong feeling and talk continuously. If they were completely educated within Chinese Buddhism, their habitual tendencies in this area would be heavier. What they continuously discuss would be like this. Among the retinue of Manjushra Bodhisattva, it is also like this. But no matter what, now they all cultivate the Mahayana emptiness teachings. Among them, some have Hanayana dispositions and some have Mahayana capacity. But later now, when they arrive at Vulture Peak Mountain in Tibetan, it also states that now they are not only proficient in the Mahayana Buddha Dharma, but all of them are cultivating the Mahayana emptiness teachings. These are such people. Just now, during the dialogue between Bodhisattva Pratyekabuddha and Manjushra Bodhisattva, in the course of their conversation, such a group of bodhisattvas arrived. The sentient beings transformed by Manjushra Bodhisattva also appeared. Manjushra Bodhisattva said to Bodhisattva Pratyekabuddha, "When I went to the Dragon Palace to teach, I transformed such amount of bodhisattvas. Can you count them clearly? Probably you cannot count them all. At the place of Tathagata Prabhutaratna, do you have such opportunities for propagating the Dharma and benefiting beings? Look at how many of my bodhisattvas there are. Please look in this sky." At that time, Bodhisattva Pratyekabuddha praised him especially, feeling that Manjushra Bodhisattva was truly remarkable. He had not expected this. Just now, I almost left. Fortunately, Shakyamuni Buddha asked me to wait a moment, otherwise I might have already left. At that time, after seeing such a scene, Bodhisattva Pratyekabuddha began to praise Manjushra Bodhisattva. "You are a venerable one of great wisdom, great merit, and great courage. The sentient beings you have liberated are truly immeasurable and limitless." Now all of us present at the Lotus Dharma Assembly, including the manifestation Buddhas who are the Tathagata, arahanttas and bodhisattvas, including myself, Bodhisattva Pratyekabuddha, have all directly witnessed this. It is especially inconceivable. The meaning of the true nature that you have expounded is all revealing what? The teachings of the single vehicle, the Mahayana teachings. Therefore, the Lotus Sutra is most supreme in this respect. You extensively guide these sentient beings, enabling them to attain what in a very short time? They attained the fruition of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Therefore, they especially praise Manjushra Bodhisattva here. Manjushra Bodhisattva also said that in the Dragon Palace, primarily that the reason that I was able to liberate so many bodhisattvas is actually because of I constantly taught the Lotus Sutra. Through the Lotus Sutra, this time so many bodhisattvas have aroused the bodhicitta. So many bodhisattvas have already attained realization. The merit and virtue of Manjushra Bodhisattva is truly inconceivable. There is a sutra called the Sutra on the Nirvana of Manjushra, which states that the merit and virtue of Manjushra Bodhisattva is especially great, including his image, the image of Manjushra Bodhisattva. If we are able to see it for thousands and millions of kalpas, we will not fall into the 3 lower realms. So for some of us Buddhist practitioners, I also mentioned a couple of days ago that if you wear images of this master or that master around your neck, hanging them around your neck, I myself am not willing to see this. I am also very much opposed to it. I hope that you will not separately print out my head and hang it around your neck. Sometimes I feel a bit unhappy. This is very inauspicious. I feel there is a kind of, but if you truly have faith in Buddhism and in this regard, it would still be better to have pendants of Manjushra Bodhisattva, pendants of Shakyamuni Buddha, or of His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok as a great realized being. That is very good. Having such pendants on your body, in many sutras and teachings, for example, regarding Manjushra Bodhisattva, he is also a Buddha of the past. Buddhas of the 10 directions relied on him to arouse the bodhicitta. He is also a Buddha of the future and also a Buddha of the present. The records in different sutras are all different. Last year I translated the biographies of the 8 great bodhisattvas. It also speaks of many, many merits and virtues of Manjushra Bodhisattva. Previously, I wrote a record of Mount Wutai. In the record of Mount Wutai, there is also especially many merits and virtues of Manjushra Bodhisattva. I specifically cited many scriptural sources regarding how those who see, hear, or come into contact with him will never regress from the Bodhisattva path. Among all the Bodhisattvas, if we recite the name of Manjushra Bodhisattva, Manjushra, and recite his mantra, Om Ara Patsana Di, doing so, including opening wisdom and not falling into the 3 lower realms, has especially great merit and virtue. Therefore, in the past, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok in 1986, before he went to Mount Wutai, required us, whether Han Chinese, Tibetan, or whatever, at that time there were relatively fewer Han Chinese people forming connections. It was from 1987 that connections were formally established. At that time, he continuously urged them to recite Manjushra heart mantra 100 million times, or 10 million, or 1 million. He urged everyone to recite the Manjushra heart mantra. In the first half of this year, I also told everyone and urged everyone to recite the Manjushra heart mantra. May we in life after life never be separated from such a wisdom bodhisattva. Of course, it is very difficult to know where the Manjushra bodhisattva actually is sometimes, especially when making pilgrimage to Mount Wutai. In different stories and throughout history, it has been stated that all those who go to Mount Wutai can meet Manjushra bodhisattva, but he is not necessarily holding a treasure sword and a sutra. It is not necessarily like that. He manifests in various forms to appear to people. It seems in the records of the Lotus Sutra transmission there is also such a story. There was a layman surnamed Gao, around 16 years old. He met a Dharma master named Hayun Shamen. He was in his 50s or 60s. At that time they lived together for a period of time. Later, Dharma Master Hayun went to Mount Wutai. When he went to Mount Wutai, he continuously taught him to recite the Lotus Sutra. When teaching him to recite the Lotus Sutra, Dharma Master Hayun often had a visitor, a monk from India. We often see in some treatises the term foreign monk, an Indian monk. This monk often had exchanges with Dharma Master Hayun. Once he said to the young layman Gao, "Do you know who this monk is today?" He said, "I do not know who he is." He spoke in a joking manner, saying he is Manjushra Bodhisattva. At that time, probably because he was too young, he also did not pay much attention. Later, he continuously taught him the Lotus Sutra. One time, when the young layman Gao was about to go to the city, he told him, "When you go this time, you must guard your sense faculties. Be careful. You must not come into contact with women. Women are the source of evil," and so forth. He spoke about many faults. At that time, he remembered his teacher's words and went to the city. When he arrived in the city, he happened to meet a 14-year-old girl. She was quite attractive and dressed very beautifully. At that time, she was riding a white horse. It seems that horse was particularly fierce, and she could not control its movements. The girl kept asking the young layman, "Can you help me? I want to get down from the horse, but my body is not well, and I have no way to control it." At that time, the young Gao kept remembering his teacher's words. He did not agree and ignored her. The girl riding the horse kept following him, chasing him for several miles. The young layman ignored her, kept his head down, and ran forward. Later, when he returned to his small hut, his teacher praised him greatly, saying, "You practiced very well this time. It should be like this." Later, after a period of time, his teacher told him, "We too have been here reciting the Lotus Sutra for 3 years now. Now I have heard that in Chang'an there is a place specifically for ordination. You can go there. Near here there is a Chan monastery, and in that monastery there is a master named Chan Master Wolun. At an appropriate time you can meet Chan Master Wolun. Then you can rely on him in the future. We two have been together for so long. After this parting we may not be able to meet again in the future. It seems there is something before this." His teacher told him, "Although that woman just now was Manjushra Bodhisattva, it does not matter. Anyway, this time you did very well by not coming into contact with her. At that time he probably spoke in a joking manner like this. He also did not pay much attention at that time. Later they separated. Their 3 years of living together had ended. After it ended, the young Gao went there to receive ordination. Then he went to Chan Master Wolun. When he arrived at Chan Master Wolun's place, the master asked, 'Where are you from?' 'I am from Mount Wutai.' 'Who is your teacher?' He said, 'My teacher is called Chan Master Haiyun.' This Dharma Master Wolun said, 'Oh, what a pity. Actually, he is the third spiritual guide from the Avatamsaka Sutra.' At that time, when the youth Sudana relied on 53 spiritual guides, the third spiritual guide was called Bodhisattva Haiyun. You actually did not recognize him. He is actually this great Bodhisattva from the Avatamsaka Sutra. The Indian foreign monk was actually Manjushra Bodhisattva. You missed both of these opportunities. How did you not recognize them? Why did you not properly rely on him? Later, at that time, probably the young Gao, if he was originally 16 years old, was already 19. Perhaps he received ordination and so forth. In between, he may have also returned once. Just kidding. Some of our Dharma friends here often say, "I have been here for 3 years now and my parents do not know. Can I quietly go back once this time? Then I will tell my parents. They might be especially happy or they might be especially sad because my hair used to be very nice. Now I do not have any hair at all." So at that time, I do not know if he went back in between or not. Later, because Chan Master Wolun spoke to him like this, he very much wanted to go back to see the Bodhisattva. As a result, when he went back to the place of the original hut, even the hut was gone. Chan Master Haiyun was also not there. Nothing was there. So generally speaking, when going to Mount Wutai, many experiences are very wondrous. Previously, when I researched the record of Mount Wutai, many were like this. Sometimes it is a Brahmin, sometimes it is some ordinary person. Especially strange are beggars and people with disabilities. There are various ways people can meet them. At such times, we should observe with pure perceptions. So when we went to Mount Wutai at that time, whenever we saw, including when we were in Chengdu, there were many farmers planting rice in the fields. At that time, every time I saw a farmer, I thought, "Oh, Manjushra Bodhisattva is planting fields." Then when we arrived in Taiyuan Shanxi, there were some workers, especially those repairing roads. It was also summer. The weather was particularly hot. Every time I saw workers wearing safety helmets, I thought, "Oh, it must be Manjushra Bodhisattva manifesting in the form of a worker for us." Actually, sometimes observing with pure perception has many benefits, right? These are the merits and virtues of Manjushra Bodhisattva. This dependent arising is also very good. Everyone should think about Manjushra Bodhisattva. At that time, Manjushra Bodhisattva liberated so many sentient beings. Actually, what was it? It was the Lotus Sutra. At that time, Bodhisattva Pratyekabuddha asked Manjushra Bodhisattva, "The Lotus Sutra is so superior and supreme. Among all the sutras, it is like a wish-fulfilling jewel. It is the best and most rare. In the world, it is also rare. It is said that many sentient beings, through diligently cultivating and practicing this sutra, and can quickly attain Buddhahood. But is it really like this or not?" He developed a kind of doubt. Bodhisattva Pratyekabuddha said, "The Lotus Sutra is that supreme, but is it truly like this?" Manjushra Bodhisattva said, "It is like this. The dragon daughter of Sagara Dragon King is 8 years old this year. Her wisdom is extremely sharp. She also thoroughly knows the faculties, conduct, and karma of all sentient beings. She has attained the 4 dharmas. She has also obtained the extremely profound secret treasury taught by Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Moreover, she can uphold all the secret treasuries of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and for a very long time she has entered into the most profound concentration. She understands the true nature of all dharmas. Moreover, in one instant she aroused the mind of Supreme Bodhi and became non-retrogressive. Her eloquence is also unhindered. She has compassion for sentient beings just like her own children. She possesses very many merits and virtues. What she contemplates in her mind is also the Lotus Sutra. What she expounds with her mouth is also the Lotus Sutra. Because she possesses compassion and benevolence, and she has made especially great vows, here it says her aspiration is harmonious and elegant. In Tibetan it also means making great vows, but actually her will is harmonious and gentle. She possesses very special merits and virtues. She is able to attain the unsurpassed supreme Bodhi fruition. At that time, Manjushra Bodhisattva spoke of many various merits and virtues of the dragon daughter. However, after Bodhisattva Pratyekabuddha heard these words, he did not quite believe it. He said, "This matter of the dragon daughter attaining Buddhahood, I do not quite believe. Why do I not believe it? I have seen our teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, who practiced austerities for immeasurable asamkhya kalpas, accumulated much merit and virtue while seeking the Bodhisattva path, and never ceased or stopped. For this reason, Bodhisattva Pratyekabuddha also knew that he used his wisdom and his abilities to observe the entire great manifold cosmos. It seems throughout the entire great manifold cosmos, there is not even a place to put a sesame seed. There is no place where he has not abandoned his body. That is to say, throughout the entire great manifold cosmos, all of it consists of places where he previously gave away his body as an offering. There is not even a single piece of land. There is not even a tiny place to put a sesame seed where he has not made an offering. The Buddha practiced like this. Later, for the sake of sentient beings, he attained the fruition of Samyak Sambodhi. He said, "As for the dragon daughter of the dragon king, in such a short time, in just a moment, just by listening to the Lotus Sutra." We have also had many doubts in the past regarding attaining Buddhahood in this very life and achieving realization in this life in the secret teachings. Some also have such questions, including realizing one's mind and seeing one's nature, and enlightenment. In the Chan tradition there are also such statements. But actually some Buddhas, they have 3 great asamkhya kalpas. The Buddha also taught in the sutras that for some who achieve realization, as stated in the middle-length Prajnaparamita Sutra, if one is willing, after passing the first bhumi of a bodhisattva, one can also attain Buddhahood within 7 days. Omniscient Longchenpa has a text called The Great Commentary on the Guhyagarbha Tantra in the general meaning section. It discusses the so-called 3 great asankhya kalpas. Actually, it is just that the disposition and types of sentient beings are different. It does not mean that one must necessarily count 1 day, 2 days, all the way to 3 great asamkhya kalpas for such a long time. It is not like that. It is merely the discriminating thoughts of sentient beings and the way of speaking about instants. Actually, for those with sharp faculties and those with the proper conditions in a short period of time, they can also attain Buddhahood and achieve realization. So this principle should be explained in this way. Therefore, why can the Lotus Sutra not be taught casually? Why is its merit and virtue so great? Generally, in the common vehicle, there is nothing like this. Just like in the Tantric teachings, there is attaining Buddhahood in this very life and achieving realization in this life. There are some profound pith instructions. Similarly, our Chan tradition and some others teach becoming a Buddha in the present moment. There are also such pith instructions. So within the Buddha Dharma, there are many categories. The reason why it is so profound is all here. At that time, he said, "I do not believe this dragon daughter can attain Buddhahood in such a short time." Look, even Shakyamuni Buddha needed such a long time. Throughout the entire great manifold cosmos, there is not a single place where he did not make offerings. Only after that was he finally able to attain Buddhahood. This dragon daughter's path is too simple. He did not quite believe it. This also happens in the world, because in the world some people really like to have one thing to apply to everything. But in some places you can apply it, but in some places, not necessarily everything can be generalized in one sweeping statement. This is unreasonable. In the world, different situations all occur. At that time, before he had finished speaking, this dragon daughter suddenly appeared before them. She paid respect to them and stood to one side, praising them with verses. This should be a verse of praise to the Buddha. She said, "The Buddha deeply understands the true nature of sin and merit. This wisdom illuminates everywhere throughout the 10 directions. The Tathagata's subtle and pure Dharma body possesses the 32 marks and also the 80 minor marks of this form body. His form body adorns the Dharma body just mentioned above. Humans and devas respect, make offerings, uphold, and venerate him. Dragons, spirits, and so forth, these sentient beings are also respectful. Respectful to whom? There is not a single type of sentient being who does not honor them. The meaning is that the Tathagata's body, whether Shakyamuni Buddha or Tathagata Prabhutaratna, here she does not particularly specify which Tathagata. For all Tathagatas, they are complete with the 32 major marks and 80 minor marks, such a form body and Dharma body in union. The dragon daughter said that through cultivating the Lotus Sutra, I have achieved Bodhi. Only the Buddha can bear witness to this principle now. Because regarding my attaining Buddhahood, you continue to debate whether I can attain Buddhahood or not. Because there is such a relationship between Manjushra Bodhisattva and them, I heard that you two continue to dispute endlessly. If that is the case, only the Buddha can bear witness to my realization. In different worlds, I expound the wondrous teachings of the Mahayana. I, in the form of a Buddha, liberate countless suffering sentient beings. When the dragon daughter finished speaking, Shariputra came again at that time. There are quite a lot of people speaking today. Just now there was Bodhisattva Prajnakuta. Then Shariputra also came. Manjushra Bodhisattva also came. Sometimes there is only one person. In that case, it would be easier for us. Are there many more or not? Not many. I will finish teaching this chapter today. At that time, Shariputra appeared and told the dragon daughter, "You say you will soon obtain the unsurpassed path. This is somewhat difficult. I do not quite believe it. Why? Because your female body has many impurities. The body is actually not a proper vessel. How could you so quickly attain unsurpassed Bodhi? The Buddha path should be very distant. Only after experiencing immeasurable kalpas of austerities can one achieve it. Moreover, the female body has 5 kinds of impurities and obstructions. The first is that one cannot attain the fruition of Brahma. The second is that the fruition of Indra also cannot be attained. The third is the demon king. In Tibetan, it says the third is the 4 great heavenly kings. 4 great heavenly kings. Why is it demon king? It is a bit different. Perhaps different sutras state it this way. The 4th is a Cakravartin, a universal monarch. And also becoming a Buddha. Attaining Buddhahood in this life is not possible. How then can you attain Buddhahood so quickly with a female body? At that time, Shariputra also asked this question. At that time, the dragon daughter had a precious jewel. Its value was equal to all the treasures of the great manifold cosmos. She immediately offered that wish-fulfilling jewel to the Buddha. At that time, the Buddha very quickly accepted it. After accepting it, the dragon daughter spoke to Bodhisattva Prajakuta and also to Shariputra, saying, "Just now I made an offering of a precious jewel to the Buddha." The Bhagavat accepted it very quickly. You tell me, was this action fast or not? Look, when I made the offering of the jewel, the Buddha immediately accepted it. Shariputra and Bodhisattva Prajnakuta, you two tell me, was my action just now fast or not? At that time, both of them said it was fast. All of this was fast. Then the dragon daughter said, "Then with your spiritual powers observe. With my spiritual powers, I will also manifest attaining Buddhahood." In the Tibetan version here, it is slightly different. The meaning is, with your spiritual powers, observe me attaining Buddhahood. At that time, the dragon daughter said, "With my spiritual powers, I will presently attain Buddhahood. With your spiritual powers, observe my entire process." In Tibetan, there is this slight difference. The meaning is, if you say it was very fast just now if I attain Buddhahood, it will be even faster than this. See how it is. At that time, the entire assembly saw this dragon daughter suddenly transform the female faculties into male faculties. Instantly, she was complete with the bodhisattva practices. Instantly, she proceeded to the southern Vimala world. At that time, very quickly, she went to the Vimala world. She sat upon a jeweled lotus flower and achieved perfect enlightenment. She was complete with the 32 marks and 80 minor marks. For sentient beings in the 10 directions, she began to expound the wondrous Dharma and turn the wheel of the Dharma. Just now, many people did not believe. But at that moment, the people present at the Lotus Assembly, she went to the southern world, the Vimala world. Then there she became a Buddha and turned the wheel of the Dharma. Previously, we have seen some others. There is one called the Extensive Sutra spoken by the Buddha on descending from Tusita heaven into the mother's womb. In this sutra, it states there is a world called Buddhas of no desire. In the world of the Buddha of no desire, there are only females. As for the number of those who have attained Buddhahood, it is 700,000 and 2,000 billion, just like the current world populations. So sometimes, regarding the various different profound meanings of the sutras, we should learn to understand. There should be different principles in this regard. We should understand in this regard. So this is also very important. If you do not believe in the sutras, that is another matter. But if you do believe, then in the sutras there is also the story of the 8-year-old dragon daughter attaining Buddhahood. This is also a true definitive teaching. At that time, all those in the Saha world, just now the Śrāvakas, Pratyekabuddhas, the 8 classes of devas and nagas, humans and non-humans, they all saw the south. It was as if spiritual powers were being manifested. They also relied on something very wondrous. From a very distant place, they saw this dragon daughter attain Buddhahood. Moreover, she was turning the wheel of the Dharma. They saw the dragon daughter attain Buddhahood. And at that time, she was teaching the Dharma for humans and devas. Everyone gave rise to great joy. So they began to pay homage toward that distant place. Actually, you see here, at that time when the dragon daughter was teaching the Dharma, sentient beings in different worlds all benefited. When the conditions come together, I was also thinking nowadays, relying on the internet, people from various countries in the east, south, west, and north all have access. This is also the inconceivable blessings of the 3 jewels. Each person also receives the transmission and also receives the blessings and a certain strength. At this time, each person is also very joyful. There is no need to go there. Previously, we thought, without spiritual powers, how could this be? But when conditions come together, it is also possible. Now, we are also in different places. Through audio and video, we can all receive Dharma teachings. In this respect, we should also be very joyful at that time. We also, in our brief human lives, have formed such a virtuous connection. Including myself personally, I also cherish this greatly. Now, regarding teaching the Dharma through the internet, I truly feel it is very good. If there do not appear any obstacles, it is very good. For our related volunteers in the future, the effectiveness should continue to improve as much as possible, because now the world is changing too quickly. If our knowledge is not updated, perhaps after a period of time there will be no way. You see, during these 10 years of propagating the Dharma through the internet, we have changed countless tools. There is no other way. So perhaps many of our volunteers need to continuously learn. We Buddhist practitioners also hope to continuously learn. I see many people in their 70s and 80s are also now going online to listen to teachings. They can manage. Many 80-year-old people are starting to register where and how to view. Not bad at all. I saw the Queen of England when she was in her 90s. She was still driving around everywhere. For the sake of listening to the Dharma, when we are 80 or 90 years old, we should still continuously go online. This is very good. This is a particularly good kind of dependent arising. At that time, teaching the Dharma in a very distant place, everyone was joyful. Moreover, they paid homage toward that distant place. Immeasurable sentient beings heard this Dharma of liberation and attained the stage of non-retrogression. You see, the sentient beings in Jambudvapa, when the dragon daughter was teaching the Dharma in the southern Vimala world, the sentient beings in Jambudvapa also attained the stage of non-retrogression. Immeasurable sentient beings received predictions. The Vimala world also underwent 6 kinds of earthquakes. 3,000 sentient beings in the Saha world abided in the stage of non-retrogression. You see, in this Saha world, actually the Vimala world and the Saha world surely have a great distance. But 3,000 sentient beings aroused the supreme mind of Bodhi and also received predictions. Bodhisattva Pratyekabuddha and also Bodhisattva Shariputra, they all silently believed and accepted. Just now, many doubts have been resolved. This is also a very good dependent arising. Therefore, the Lotus Sutra is truly a Mahayana teaching. It enables us to accept many principles that are difficult to believe. This dependent arising is very good. Good. That is all for today.
Bandharangara Padmasada Bandharangara Padmasada